There's been a flurry of new releases in AI coding lately. From GPT-5 to new versions of Cursor, new versions of the Gemini CLI, it's all good. But I keep finding myself coming back to Claude Code. Find the way it interprets the prompts and the output it gives me is just a little bit better than everybody else. And the Claude Code team is shipping. Almost every day they have a new release with bug fixes and some new features sprinkled in. Hey, my name is Ben. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 new features in Claude Code that really help me in my workflow. Let's go. One feature I think is underutilized in Claude Code is the planning mode. And that feature just got a new upgrade. And to get into planning mode, you just need a shift tab until you see plan mode on. And what planning mode is it just does planning. It does no coding for you. So it just lets you iterate your idea. So you have the right technologies, the right requirements, all kind of ready before you actually start the coding. What that means is you can put in some general bullet points of requirements, some ideas you have on technologies, and then Claude Code will actually just go ahead, flesh those out, and give you more detailed requirements. In this case, let's just say build an embedded Shopify application using React Router and Neon for a database. And then we'll use GPT-5 to analyze merchant data and recommend customer-targeted bundles and sales offers. And why planning mode is so important, if you don't use it and you just start with kind of vague prompts like this, what ends up happening is you got to get down a wrong path, and then it becomes hard to get out of it again. Like anything else, a little preparation goes a long way. And then we see here what Claude Code did was actually give us a breakdown of our project structure it's going to build. Gives us details on the requirements, what technologies it's recommending, all this before we start coding. And now we can iterate on that plan from here. And because that planning work is so important, I'd recommend using as much horsepower as you can in that planning phase. And Claude Code is a new feature to do that. So if you do a / command for model, there's a new 4th option now. So this is actually more applicable if you have the lower plan, like the Pro plan, the $20 a month one, because you don't have that many credits. So to stay within your usage limits, you want to really use Opus, which is the higher end model for planning. And so this 4th model lets you do that. So what it says is use Opus 4.1, which is the latest one as of this recording, in plan mode, and then Sonnet 4 otherwise. So basically what this will do is give you all the horsepower up front in your planning mode, so you're happy with the specifications. Then when it starts coding, it's going to switch to Sonnet 4 to do that more efficiently and not use up all your usage limits. So like I said, if you have the max plan or higher, it's probably not that big a deal. You can probably keep it on Opus or default. But if you are on that Pro plan, I'd recommend looking into this one and setting this one as your default. The next new feature is a little one, but it actually really improves your user experience as a developer in Claude Code. So if you look at my Claude Code window right now, I don't actually have much context about like what model I'm using, where I am, what application I'm in. If I just took a break and I kind of forgot what application I was working on, I don't really have much in the UI that's easily available to actually know what I'm doing right now. So this new feature actually adds a status bar underneath your command line to give you some of that information. And you can customize this a lot. So if you do / command status line, just let it cook there on the default. It's going to actually just add some default things that it thinks will be useful for you to see. And you do have to restart Claude Code after you run that status line command. But now that I have restarted it, now you can see underneath here, it shows me the model it's using. So it says Opus 4.1. It gives me the full directory of the current project I'm in. From here, you can also customize it. I could say make the 2 values different colors, and also add the Git branch so I can see the Git branch I'm currently on. Now if I restart it again, now I actually see the model, the full directory to my application, and also the branch I'm in Git, all in different colors, which is pretty cool. And there's many customizations you can do here. You can add things like the time, how long your Claude Code session's been, even stuff about your build status or the status of your test suite, all kinds of different options. It's actually a really good document Claude produced for this, and I'll put that in the description of the video so you can read that. It's a small one, but it's a nice upgrade to your user experience inside Claude Code. Claude Code has introduced the concept of agents, and what those really are, you can think of them as a process that runs, that just does very specific tasks and has very specific instructions. I think the most important thing to remember about an agent is it maintains its own context. So you can have a front-end agent that does all the design work and the UI work, and then you can have a back-end agent which knows all about the database, has access to MCP servers for database manipulation. And you can keep those kind of separated with their own context windows for both. And then Claude Code orchestrates them and gets the job done by using whichever one's appropriate for the current job. Let's look at an example of one. So if you use the / command agents, then it'll give you a list of all the agents you have. I don't have any right now, so let's say create a new agent. And I'd recommend just starting off with a project agent. Once you get that done and is working well, then you can move it up to your personal. And the personal one will apply to all the projects you have on this system. Let's say generate with Claude. So this will help us kind of refine our agent. And then at this point, it's actually kind of like planning mode. So you just put in your points about what you want the agent to do, and then Claude will enhance that from there. In my case, I want this to be a Shopify app UI agent. And I wanted to use Shopify's Polaris React component library. I also want to follow Shopify's app design guide. I think this is a good example of how the agent would work, because when I do the backend agent, I'm not going to put any of this information. It doesn't really care about the app design guide. That's more a layout and UI design. It's going to ask you what type of tools you want to have access to. So I'm going to say all tools, but you could have agents that are just read-only, for example, that just did like planning work. You could have one that just did execution, maybe like a test suite execution agent. But for this one, I'm just going to say all. And then you can say what model you want the agent to use. I usually just say inherit from the parent. That's going to be whatever model you're using in Claude Code that orchestrates all the agents. That's going to use that one. So I'm going to say that. Then just give it a color. And we're ready to go. If you see here, it actually just creates a markdown file that has a whole definition of this agent. And you can see the location here. So for future agents, you can actually just copy this markdown file if you want and create another agent. So you don't have to go through that whole wizard again if you don't want to. And now that I have that agent, if I just put in the prompt, build an embedded Shopify application in React Router and give it some of my requirements for my application, it should know to go to that agent and utilize that to build with. We can see that right here. It's picked that up. Now that it's installed some of the dependencies, it says, now let me use the specialized Shopify Polaris UI agent to create the app structure with proper Shopify components. And then we can see the color blue here, which is the color I had for that agent. It's calling that and using that to do the coding. So now that's going to keep its own context window and do its work. And this is the user interface it came up with. It's a really good first attempt because it actually used the Shopify app guidelines on how it wants the application structured. And I use the Polaris UI components pretty well here. I'm still experimenting with these agents and still trying to figure out when's the right time to use them and when you don't really need to. But if you have any advice on that, make sure you add it to the comments below. But at the very least, they're at least handy for having those markdown files. You can think of those as kind of like a prompt template. Just being able to use those as somewhere to keep putting in new information and getting better prompts is a good thing. And also I like the idea of having the context just scoped to that particular agent. I think that's another big improvement. Definitely more to come on the agents. There's a lot going on in AI software development right now. So if you want to stay up to date, make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the video. Hope you're having an amazing day. I'll talk to you in the next one.